Hello everyone, my name is Zhang Yingying, a PhD student in educational technology. Today, I would like to give you a brief introduction to my research ideas outline. My topic is the effect of gamification on students' motivation for computer science students. First of all, it should be clear why I want to study the computer science major as a research background. According to the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, the field of computer science is currently experiencing a surge in undergraduate degree production and program enrollment due to the growing global demand for skilled science, technology, engineering, and mathematics professionals to meet the challenge associated with 21st century. In the computer science field, programming is essential. Computer programming courses are part of many university courses and are one of the most important subjects for computer science students. Programming is known for its complexity and difficulty. Many students on programming courses have difficulty in acquiring the required competencies and skills. This problem is much more apparent at the introductory stage. Students often perceive programming courses as hard, relatively unmanageable work. Many institutions report drop-off rates of 20% to 40% in their introductory programming courses. As we all know, students' interest and motivation are important and necessary in education, especially in courses such as computer science, where boring and complex courses content requires more interest and motivation. So this is why I chose gamification. In the current higher education environment, lectures and pre-recorded lectures are still used in computer science field, especially in computer programming courses. Lectures, of course, the most efficient from teaching in a higher educational environment where one teacher often works with hundreds of students. Although lectures can also include a lot of media and films to get the students' attention, they do not allow the student to participate in them, and the learning outcomes are still not as good as expected. Another one is a problem-based approach. A problem situation is created and students work in small groups to discuss and explore. This approach is good for enhancing students' creativity and imagination, but for students at the introductory level, the inability to discuss solutions may lead to a loss of self-confidence and be detrimental to further learning. So one way to address these issues is through gamification. Gamification is widely defined as the use of game design elements in non-game environments to increase user engagement. Gamification has recently become popular in educational settings because it motivates students, and the use of game elements creates an engaging experience and improves the learning experience. While there is a wealth of published research on gamification, there is still a need to better understand the impacts of gamification on computer science education. Next is my research objectives and research questions. The aim of the study was to investigate whether gamification was applicable to computer science students and would be a sustainable motivator for their future learning, based on which 4 research objectives were proposed. Number 1 is to design gamification activities, both exist or build myself, to be used in computer programming courses. Number 2 is to examine which elements of games engage students' interest in learning. Number 3 is to examine the level of students' motivation through gamification. And number 4 is to examine students' confidence in learning computer science through gamification. Based on the research objectives, the research questions were formulated. Number 1, what is the level of students' interest through the use of game elements? Number 2, what is the level of student motivation after using gamification? Number 3, what is the confidence level of students in learning computer science through gamification. And next is the research design. On the one hand, we need to understand whether gamification engages students' interest and motivation to learn. And on the other hand, we need to figure out their attitude towards computer science after using gamification. So we need to use quantitative and qualitative method. Quantitative analysis is needed to determine students' satisfaction, acceptance, and feasible of the gamification approach. Also, we can analyze the relationship between students' learning outcomes and gamification through data. Qualitative analysis can determine the real attitudes and thoughts of gamification on students' learning of computer science. Next is population and sampling, because most difficulties start at the beginning. So the population is the first-year students in the same course with the same lecturer in computer science. Typically, undergraduate computer science major have more than 100 students who are usually divided into 2 or 3 classes. Therefore, the sampling is one class. We randomly select one class, about 40 people as our sample. The students in the class and are then grouped by stratified sampling. Students were divided into 2 strata according to gender, and half the number of each strata was randomly selected as the sample. This was to ensure that experimental and control groups were of the same size and to reduce coincidence. The gender grouping was done to reduce gender differences, as there is a bias that in computer science, male students perform better than female students, so it was important to balance the genders. For the research instruments, I will choose data log, questionnaire, and interview. We can use data logs to analyze motivation, use questionnaires to analyze the students' interest of computer science, analyze the effects of gamification through interviews. The specific process of analyze as well as the analytical ideas requires further thinking. No ideas have taken shape yet. Then finally comes the findings we expected to achieve. Gamification stimulates students' interest in learning computer science. Gamification stimulates students' motivation, both extrinsic and intrinsic. Computer science students who have experienced gamification are hopeful about their future studies. Finally, there is references. So that's all. Thank you for your listening.